Hey everyone, feel free to go ahead and network as everyone is coming in. We're going to do the networking till about 12:15, and then we're going to get started directly with the presentation. So we're going to go ahead and get started with Matthew Kincaid.
Sure. Yeah, once again, obviously, thank you all for coming. I think it's been interesting because in the midst of the global pandemic, I've been asked a few times, like, speak on panels or to think about or envision, what the world could be after this, right? In this very aspirational way. And, that's powerful. That's very important. But I have to be fully transparent with everyone on the call today that, I am in a very interesting place. I think obviously being Black in America comes with its own set of challenges, but obviously being Black in America in the midst of this pandemic is really to recognize just how all-encompassing systemic racism is. As we see this pandemic, which many people felt would be this great equalizer, ravish Black and Brown communities, and also Indigenous communities as well, it makes me think critically about who in our society are discardable and who are not. And the ways in which the conversation about reopening our country shifted when we started to see the data about who was being most predominantly impacted by this pandemic.
Move on now, of course, to the reason we're here, which is the impact of the virus on minority communities. The coronavirus data that we've seen is undeniable, although much of it is incomplete. But what racial and ethnic data we do have, it says things like this. In Milwaukee County, an African American is nearly 3 times more likely to die of coronavirus than a white person. And a Black person is 7 times more likely to die of coronavirus than a white person in the entire state of Wisconsin.
But I think from a societal perspective, right, all these different intersecting systems have made us sick for a very long time. As we think about moving forward, I want us to make sure that we're thinking about what does it mean to actually prioritize the communities that are bearing the greatest brunt of not only this disaster, but have continually and perpetually been bearing the brunt of systems and structures of inequality. If we're going to actually move forward and create this new world identity, right, then we have to fundamentally prioritize justice over comfort. And what justice means is divesting from these system structures and practices. But we also have to understand that we didn't get here through just sheer neutrality. These system structures and practices serve certain people, right? And probably serve more of us, obviously me being male and cisgendered and heterosexual, right? I fit in a number of these groups. These systems serve more of us in ways that probably those of us who consider ourselves as people who fight against social inequalities like to admit. And so as we think about this journey and road ahead, I want us to think about what risks we're willing to take to actually actualize this world that we want to create. The systems and structures aren't just powerful because the people in power have wealth or influence, right? The systems of structure are powerful because we also give power to these systems and structures. We also live in and buy into and operate within the norms that fuel these systems and structures. How can we push forward the reforms that we fundamentally think are critical to creating the world that we know that we deserve to exist in? Paulo Freire says that it's imperative that we maintain hope, even when the harshness of reality suggests the opposite. And I think that for me, that's where my heart is. We will win. We'll figure this out.
Next, we're going to move on to Dr. Peter Scharf.
Thank you so much, Nichelle. I was retained by the ACLU to write a report on COVID-19 and ICE detention. And there are roughly 55,000 people who have done nothing more than appeal for asylum in the United States. And they're been confined in contract facilities. In Louisiana, they're often lack hygiene, they lack soap. Many ICE detention centers, people we interviewed said the beds are 2 feet apart, 3 feet apart, concentrated environments, almost impossible to socially distance.
Thank you so much, Dr. Scharf. We're going to go on with our next slide and our next panelist speaker, and that's going to be Miss Marianne Cufone.
Inequity in access to fresh food is something that happens all the time. This isn't something new. It's only just gotten so much worse during this COVID-19 crisis. Can you get groceries, fresh food to people where they're at? Depends on what neighborhood you're in. Depends on how much money you have. Right now, grocery deliveries are available, but they're super expensive. Went in and tried to program different addresses to see where the groceries would and wouldn't go. And they wouldn't go to some of our New Orleans neighborhoods. And in addition to not going there, they would only deliver to private homes in some instances.
Next, we're going to move on to our section of what you can do. So our first speaker in that sector is going to be Dr. Adrian Kettner.
Hi guys, I'll try to keep it short. I feel that one of the greatest weapons against racism is knowledge of labor laws. My agenda today is just to remind many of the businesses that might be on the phone today about some of the important labor laws that protect our workers. A lot of these resources you can find on the Department of Labor's coronavirus resource website. They have posters, they have Spanish versions of all of this information. OSHA also has guidance on how to prepare the workplace for workers and how to keep them safe. Unions are one institution that is less talked about in the news, but is under attack, especially lately. Through a lot of the state employment at will and right to work laws and changes in federal legislation and court rulings, the power of unions has largely been decimated. They've traditionally been the champions of worker rights, but today we're kind of moving towards a new NGO model, like the Coalition of Immokalee Workers, some of the NGOs of the people who are speaking today. I also wanted to mention that I agree with our first speaker, Matthew Kincaid. We can't return to the policies of the past. The COVID pandemic is an opportunity for us to create a new normal where justice is prioritized over comfort. There'll always be individuals who need reliable Social Security, and it's especially important now that we think about financing and sustaining these programs with all of the budgetary issues that are coming up. We know Louisiana is projecting a $1 billion budget shortfall. With that, I'll turn the mic over to Dr. Nicole Caridad Ralston from Beloved Community.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I am, again, Dr. Nicole Cuddy Ralston with Beloved Community, and I'm going to share with you some ways that you can particularly think through how racism may be showing up in your organization and what you can do now. So one is to acknowledge that racism is real, exists, and continues. Racism is endemic to US society. It is a forever pandemic. It is something that is with us and has been with us because of the history of this country, because of the foundations of our economy, which is based on the enslavement of Africans and the forced removal of indigenous people. And so you first have to work both personally and as an organization to even acknowledge that that is a thing, right? You have to learn and unlearn all of the ways that we are taught not to see, and then you can start to think through how to dismantle it and how to rebuild more equitable systems throughout your organization. Consider taking an identity inventory of your own identities. So how do I, as a multiracial Latina woman who grew up low SES, I was a free and reduced lunch kid, yet still operates in a lot of privilege in terms of my white passing privilege, the higher socioeconomic status that I am now in compared to most of my family members, the fact that I'm even able to safely work from home, right? That is a major class privilege that my father, who is a postman, is not able to lean into at this moment, right? So taking an identity inventory. Where does power, privilege, and marginalization live within yourself as a human being? Next, assessing your organization's current policies and practices, and specifically asking yourselves, where might seemingly neutral practices be laden with biases? Going back to point one, because of our country being founded on racism, nothing is objective or neutral. Though we are often taught that there is such a thing as objectivity, it does not exist. And so where can you push and prod and interrogate where seemingly neutral things may be showing up in your organization? But you can also take an audit of your organization's policies and practices. Beloved Community, we have a free one called the Equity Audit. You can find it on our website. So that's a way that you can look through various aspects of your org and see where opportunities for growth around diversity, equity, and inclusion are showing up for your organization. And then third, showing compassion. And so I don't say that lightly in that, we all need to operate in love and that's going to cure all things. Yes, love is extremely important. When I say compassion, I'm thinking particularly about feeling, thinking, taking into account someone's experiences and what they may be going through, and centering that perhaps over your own individual beliefs, thoughts, or practices. Why is that important now more than ever? First of all, it's important all of the time. We work with a variety of organizations, and since the pandemic, it has been an issue and a pain point showing up for employees that they just feel like they can't even take a break or breathe or just be as a human being because of the continuous emphasis on productivity and output.
Our panelists have anything additional that they would like to add?
I'd like to say one thing. I'm really scared about retaining our democratic processes, which are under attack right now. So voting by mail, which is under attack by the current administration, going forward and moving forward. And I think this political year is critical